Week 6 in the first game was the Bombers versus the Dozers. We're going to start things off in the second. It's Justin Wade, the substitute, bringing around 2 on a single. Then later in the inning, Jake Kocher is going to use his foot, and Matt Hines gets the play at second. The Dozers are up 7-0 after 2. In the third, Jake Kocher bringing around 1, and later he goes yard, bringing around 4 runs on the grand slam. The Bombers would score 8 in the inning to take the 8-7 lead. In the bottom half, Justin Wade brings across 2, and the Dozers regain the lead. In the top, Steve Gaffney found his groove, striking out Josh Shelton and Jake Kocher. In the bottom half, Kocher hold him to 0 as he tells Steve Gaffney to take a seat. Now in the top, Gaffney would hit 2 straight batters, walking in 2 runs. So it's 17-13. The Dozers need some answers. In the bottom half, Josh Shelton can't make the play. 1 run comes across. Another run would come across on that play. Everyone's safe, and it's up to Justin Wade, 17-16 in his first game, and he can't do it. The Bombers would hold on to win this one by 1 run. The Dozers would stay on the field to take on the Quackers. Josh Swan pitching, and the Dozers were all over them like white on rice. Ian Hall's double would bring around another. Then John Capitelli with a 2-run single. The Dozers scored 6 in the first. Then in the second, Steve Gaffney, he'd go long, and the Quackers were struggling in the field as well, as they were unable to make some plays at first. And the Dozers were up 15-4 after 2. So the Quackers looking for some answers with the bases loaded, bases unloaded. That's Ben Anastasi as he hits a grand slam. But in the bottom, Gaffney would answer as the Dozers took a 16-8 lead. Darren McGuire would bring across 2 with a double. Then Steve Gaffney makes one heck of a play as he dives and gets Josh Swan at third. Take another look. Bases are loaded here. Gaffney makes the diving grab and gets Swan on the elbow before he can get back. That leave the Quackers at 5 runs. In the next frame, Pollard adds 2 more, making it 17-15, and Steve Gaffney would get the strikeout to end the threat. Pollard would come in to pitch the 6th, and down by 2, the Quackers need runs. They have the bases loaded, but Steve Gaffney gets Darren McGuire going home. Darren would fly out. That's 2 outs. The commissioner's up, and he would ground out. John Capitelli makes the play at second. The Dozers knock off the undefeated Quackers by a score of 17-15. Game 3 was the Bombers versus the Workhorses. Mike Anderson letting one up to Matt. I can hit a home run, Hines. And Mike Hackett would answer in the bottom half, hitting a home run of his own. And everyone was on the home run diet as Jake Kocher would get 2 in the second before Mike Anderson finally sends him to Lonely Island with the strikeout. In the bottom half, the Workhorses would string together hits. Hackett and Beard would help to bring around 7 runs as the Workhorses took the lead, and on defense, it became the Mike Hackett show. He was making every play out there. 2 one-handed snags. Someone needed to take him to the dry cleaner because he was just dirty. Here's a double play in the next frame. And in the bottom half, Eli Beard would have a 2-run single as the Workhorses had a 14-6 lead. Hines would make it interesting in the 5th with a home run, but Mike Hackett was still making plays on defense off his back foot. And really, that's all the Workhorses would need as Mike Anderson would single around a run. Hackett would hit a home run, and the Workhorses would go on to win this one by a final score of 23-19. In the 4th game, it was the Suns taking on the Workhorses, and the Workhorses got off to a hot start. Anderson taking it to opposite field, showing his power. Then Sean Anchor, I eat pitches like you for breakfast. His 2-run shot would make it 9 on the inning for the Workhorses. In the second, JT would add a home run of his own as the Suns score 4. Now in the bottom of the second, J-Mac makes an over-the-shoulder catch to rob Eli Beard. And later in the third, JT would hit another home run. And Mike Anderson would finish off the inning with a nice lobbed pitch. Eli Beard in the 4th gets robbed again. That's J-Mac making the diving grab. Take another look. Full extension. He grabs that one. So Eli clearly frustrated. He says, "Take that," as he hits a 2-run shot. Then it was back to the Mike Hackett show as he nets another one-handed grab on the day and hitting the Workhorses just too much for the Suns as they keep roping them, and the Workhorses would go on to win as JT's flyout ends the game. The workhorses take this one 19-14. The final game, Suns versus the Whompers, and Joe Cap on the hill struggling to start off. He'd walk in 3 runs before getting a few strikeouts here to end the inning, and the Suns were up 3-0 after the first, and Kevin Hammond would bring across 3 in the second. JT Williams would add a 2-run double to push the lead to 12. In the bottom half, the Whompers would get on board as J-Max unable to make the play, but Trevor Swan would make up for it as he dives, makes the play, and tags Curtis out for a double play. And the Suns weren't done on defense in the next frame. Kevin Hammond, you don't see this often, he gets a peg out. Right at second, that would end the inning. The Suns up big after 3. Now in the fourth, the Whompers down 11, and they start to string together some hits. It was Wilson and Cap. They'd help bring around 6, and on defense, Curtis Hout would make the over-the-shoulder catch, and Cap would get a strikeout. The Whompers were feeling it. In the fifth, the Suns would bring in Kevin Hammond. He's never pitched before, and it showed. He'd walk in a lot. And after the bases were chucked, Chris Wilson brings across 2. And Alora in his first game would single in a pair, and then Joe Cap. And that's adiosa. As he hits a 2-run shot, the Suns were down 5 in the last inning, and they were all out of runs, and they'd go on to lose 20-15.